Good morning, this is Lindsay Sullivan back live at Bone and Joint Institute, and today we're with Dr. Ian Byram talking shoulder replacement. So Dr. Byram, thank you so much for your time this morning. So before we dive into shoulder replacement, tell me a little bit about yourself and your specialty.
So I joined this group in 2012 after finishing my fellowship in shoulder and elbow reconstruction at Columbia, New York. My wife and I are both from North Carolina, but we came to know this area after I came to residency at Vanderbilt.
Okay.
Hard to believe, back in 2006. So
Okay.
We've been here now, and yeah, my specialty is shoulder, elbow, and sports medicine, which means that we help take care of the athletes here in the community. And then I have a special interest in shoulder reconstruction, which is what we're talking about today.
Awesome. So before we really dive into shoulder replacement, let's kind of back up and get to the root of it. It's all caused typically by arthritis. So explain a little bit about arthritis in the shoulder.
So arthritis, and if you've ever been to my clinic, I use this spiel all the time, is not so much the presence of something, it's the absence of the natural cushioning or cartilage in the shoulder. So there are secondary signs of arthritis, such as spur formation, cyst formation in the bone, but the root problem is the lack of cushioning.
Okay.
So I'll often give the analogy, instead of new tires on new pavement, if you have an arthritic shoulder, it's like worn out tires on cobblestone.
Got it.
Causes stiffness, pain, catching, and then decreased function in the shoulder.
Okay. So what do you typically do for arthritis in the shoulder? Can you talk about conservative treatment versus then moving into surgery?
Yeah. So the initial treatment is typically conservative. We want to maximize your function. So that's through things like physical therapy, stretching, oral anti-inflammatories, topical gels, and then we will often consider injections to basically try to decrease the inflammatory response. None of those treatments really change the structural problem, but people can live active, healthy lives with an arthritic shoulder, and not everyone needs a surgery. So
Okay.
we typically start with that.
And then how do you make the decision then to move into surgery and kind of talk about the surgical process?
Yeah. So if those treatment options fail and you're struggling to have the proper function or your pain is not adequately controlled, then there is the option of surgery. In some cases with very mild arthritis, there can be an arthroscopic cleanup type procedure. But when the arthritis has progressed to the point that there's very little cushioning left, we do a replacement. So what is a replacement? We take the arthritic surfaces and replace them with smooth surfaces. So in a standard or anatomic replacement, we take the ball and replace it with a metallic ball, and then we put a plastic lining on the socket so that you can glide freely. There's been a recent emergence of reverse shoulder arthroplasty. It's been in the US for about 20 years now. And what that means is, in certain cases where you don't have a functional rotator cuff, or you have a fracture, or you have severe bone loss, we can still replace the joint, but we actually put the ball on the socket side and then turn what used to be the ball into the cup. And this is advantageous for those who have those specific problems because it's a more stable joint, but you sacrifice a little bit of mobility for that stability. So this is why we always evaluate when you come in. We look at your motion, we look at your bone loss, and then we discuss which surgical option would be better for you when it gets to that point. And people often ask, well, when do I have to? And the answer is, when all other treatment options fail and you're miserable, then it's a good time to consider.
At that point. So a little bit about the replacement. Talk about technology that we use here in the office and leading up to the surgical procedure.
Yeah. So not that long ago, 15 years ago when I was in training, we would primarily just use plain films to plan for our surgeries. Now, the majority of the time, we're going to have some type of 3D imaging, whether it's a CT scan or MRI. And then there's technology that allows us to plan your whole surgery on a scan, on a computer. And then even one step further, I can link my instruments in the operating room to that scan so that I get direct feedback. So I tell people it's like a pilot flying a plane with flight controls. It tells you your exact depth, where your hand is, where your instruments are, similar to velocity, altitude and all the things that come with a pilot. So it's not robotic, but it is computer assisted.
Computer assisted. Okay. So after surgery, what does the recovery look like? Is there therapy involved? How does that look like for a patient going home?
Yeah, so we initiate some gentle range of motion exercises immediately, but I typically, and my partners, we typically wait a brief period before we start formal therapy on the shoulder.
Okay.
In my case, it's usually about a week.
Okay.
And then you're going to go to an outpatient therapy facility, typically twice a week for a few months.
Okay.
Sling we use to protect initially for the first 4 to 6 weeks, depending on what type of surgery you're having.
Okay.
And then most of the time, people are back to their normal active lifestyles within that 4 to 6 month range.
4 to 6 month range, awesome. So let's kind of wind back back to kind of the arthritis piece and whatnot. Is there any way to prevent arthritis in the shoulder, or kind of going down the path of a shoulder replacement?
Yeah, so there are certain parts of it that are genetic and based on previous wear and tear or injury, so you can't per se prevent that, but you can certainly maintain or maximize your function. So daily stretching, working on postural strength, maintaining the muscles of your rotator cuff. These are all advantageous ways to maintain your function. And then even if it progresses to the point that you need a replacement, you're going to be in a better spot going into that.
Absolutely.
So, maintaining flexibility and strength is always a positive.
It's always a positive. So I know you're involved in a lot of research. Talk to me about any research and interest there dealing with shoulder replacement.
Yeah, so we have a research and outcomes committee here at Bone and Joint, and that's important to us that we track our patients so that we can provide optimal care. I've been leading that committee, and in doing so, we actually brought in a company to help us look at our outcomes, and we received a research grant for that, which was really cool. I've been contributing to what's called a registry, which is when we take de-identified patient data, so your name's not associated with it, and we put it into a big data pool so that we can see who does the best and what qualifications or certain characteristics lead to a better outcome. So we've been doing that for several years now, and then we just had a paper published in the Journal of Shoulder and Elbow Surgery looking at 2-year outcomes on computer-assisted navigation, and it shows what we thought, which is that it actually leads to better clinical outcomes.
So when patients do get that survey pre-surgery and then post-surgery, it's very important to fill that out to help us with the research.
I mean, it's twofold. It tells us how the patient's doing.
Absolutely.
I mean, we want to know how you're doing, and then it also lets us hopefully provide better care in 5, 10, 15 years.
Absolutely.
For other patients. So that's the essence of research and why we do it.
Absolutely. And so talk a little bit about, I know with research, you're involved with the American Shoulder and Elbow Surgeons Foundation. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so for the last couple of years, I've sat on the board of trustees for the Shoulder and Elbow Society Foundation, and the primary goal of the foundation is to raise money and awareness for shoulder and elbow related research and education. So we have multiple regional events to try and raise awareness and money for that as well. And it's really been a great way for us to be able to get out into the community because ultimately, I mean, as surgeons and doctors, our goal is to take care of our patients.
Absolutely.
And these are means by which we can do that better. So it's been a really exciting part of my career to be able to be involved with them.
And kind of just in wrap up here, we ask it every time we do a Facebook Live, and it kind of talks, builds into a little bit about giving back to the community, but talk about the comprehensive care that we're able to offer here at Bone and Joint Institute, and how does it help the patient experience and the community in general? Yeah,
so I feel very fortunate to be a part of this institute because from the second you walk in the door, we can help provide everything that would prepare you for a surgery and then everything after the surgery. So that comes, along with getting the CT scan here in this building, reviewing it with me here in the office, having a preoperative joints education class here in our building. And then it's your choice to have therapy here in our main office or in one of our other multiple locations that are, so that you don't have to necessarily drive 20 minutes to go to therapy twice a week. So it's been great to see that evolve over the last, 6 years,
Hard to believe.
Since we moved here. And I think that makes it easier on the patient. There's just
Absolutely.
one place. You don't have to be going all over.
All over the place.
That's right.
Well, awesome. Well, Dr. Byram, thank you again for your time today. And if you have any questions for Dr. Byram or would like to schedule an appointment with him, you can visit our website at boneandjointtn.org or give us a call at 615-791-2630. Dr. Byram, thank you again for your time this morning. I appreciate it. Have a great day in clinic, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks for having me.